Hey everyone. I'm Gwen Callahan. I'm the co-director of Portland Horror Film Festival. And I'm so excited. We are joined by Nick Wernham, the director of the last episode, as well as Michael LeBlanc, who is the director of photography and whose point of view we kind of follow through the entire movie. I mean, kind of, we do. Like the camera is on his shoulder and he is running around behind these guys. So Michael, I applaud you for your physicality and stamina, even though we can't see your performance on film. We're right there with you, and I've always been fascinated by um, the shows like Cops, where you see the cops like running after somebody, but then if you step back and think about it, there's all the cameraman is doing the same thing, except that he is also now carrying like a 40-pound camera on his shoulder. And I wanted to ask you to share a little bit about that experience. Is this something you've done before, or is this your first time kind of filming something in this style?
I've never filmed anything like this before. This was the first time. That's why I like to work with Nick. He's always like making me do things I've never done before. I mean, I've ran at people handheld before, lots. I've been shooting for over 20 years, so I've done lots of handheld, but not like this, not like emulating cops or emulating this style of photography. The camera was on my shoulder more than most movies that I've done. I was holding onto it quite a bit.
Wow, is this something that you would be excited to do again?
Oh yeah, yeah, I love it. Like I love handheld. It's like my favorite form of shooting. I just love it because it's just so you're just so with you're just a part of the camera. The camera's just on your shoulder, and you look. And I love looking through a viewfinder, and it's almost like an old way to make films or something. Like when we used to shoot on film all the time, it was just always through the viewfinder. But then yeah, when we moved to video, it's all onboard monitors. It's all monitors, big monitors, far away from you. There's just so much stuff. When I do handheld now, sometimes I have the viewfinder, but if I'm shooting a film on like an Alexa or something like that, I usually am actually operating off a monitor. So I enjoy just being locked into and pulling the focus and doing the zooms and just doing it all because it's just like those old cameras, right? The early 2000 DV cam, like that's how the news people did it. They did it all themselves. So except for the sound. So it'd just be like extreme small crews, and we handled it that way. It was a very, 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 very small crew. It was just Nick, the director, myself, Ian, the sound man, and then our producers, Chris and Paul, and then we had like Art and like a few other people. There's like some PAs and stuff, but it was like super extremely small, and it was like super fun. Anyway, I just answered that question.
No, no, that was great. Yes. Was there also a stunt coordinator?
Pardon? Oh, yeah, there was a stunt coordinator for sure for some of the stunts, but a lot of the time it was just us in the car, just me and Nick, just like squashed together in the car with Ian and our actors, and we had a follow vehicle. It wasn't like 10 follow vehicles; it was like a follow vehicle. It was awesome. It was
Yeah.
really small and nice, and we loved it. And we had a really fun time making the film. Huh, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing more fun than making movies is making movies with your friends. And it felt like that's what we got to do on this. It was friends and family. Like my sister Emma, this is the first feature film she's ever worked on, and she was our art director. And she and our production designer Vicky spent the entire art budget making all of the cop stuff look legit. And so for every other piece of set dressing and all the other props in the movie that we had to find, it was just them trolling Facebook Marketplace or making stuff from scratch. I remember there's a scene with some old leather-bound books inside of the basement in it, and that's Emma going on YouTube and learning how to bind books in the space of a weekend and making like a dozen of them just from scratch. Yeah, like
Wow, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Um, Yeah, so it was really fun, and our one of our two producers, Chris Cunningham, his wife Agnes Deck is our editor too. So and Michael and Chris and Paul, our other producer, like we've all been friends going back 10, 15 years in some cases at this point. Like I've made three movies with Michael at this point. All three features I've directed. He's shot, and all three of them very different. And it's just been an incredible experience. I feel like I've got a few people who I work with in this business, especially Chris and Paul and Michael, who are kind of like my older brothers in film in a way. So I always walk away from every project having learned a lot from them and with them, I guess. So yeah, it's really
Yeah, we
great.
did the first movie together. We did our first movie together, and I knew Chris and Paul from music videos and other things, and they introduced me to Nick, No Stranger Than Love, and
Hmm.
that was the film that we did together. And then like we've just all been really good friends since then. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice to work with your friends. There's nothing like it because it's more often than not that you're working with friends for sure. You're always working with your friends because they're your peers and you work together and do a lot.
Mhm.
But it's not all the time that it's actually this much fun. A lot of time I'm not working with friends. I'm just working with like other filmmakers that are actually, I'm nice to them. We're all kind to one another and stuff. Usually all of my crew are my friends, but a lot of it's never this tight and this nice.
So
It was amazing.
kind of develop a
Like I
shorthand.
look back on it, I'm like, wish there were more reshoots, or a part
Yeah.
two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we Michael razzes me a lot because on the two previous features we've done fairly extensive reshoots, just like whenever we could find people for a few days here or a week there. Usually pretty short um, principal photographies on balance, then supplemented by a decent amount of reshoots afterwards. This one, it was a little bit less that way. I think we shot a few weeks in principal and then 4 days of reshoots, so a little more conventional
Which
in
is
that
very,
sense.
very disappointing, which is very disappointing. I wish we'd
I
had
know.
more
We
reshoots.
should still be doing reshoots now, as far as I'm concerned, Michael. I wish we were still doing we
I
should have never
mean,
stopped.
just
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah,
I have
Amazing.
an idea for your next movie. It's the never-ending movie shoot.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just constantly, like the movie never comes out because you're constantly reshooting.
I have it. I'm gonna have to write that down after this. We'll start
Then it
storyboarding next week,
then it
Michael.
becomes like a just completely different movie at the
Yeah.
end.
I love it.
Progressively darker and darker.
Yeah.
So there's one of the things that we really liked about this film because there's so many found footage movies out there now, and one of my major complaints, as I'm sure this is a common thing for other people as well, is that found footage seems like it would be easy to do, and so all I need is a camera and some actors, and I can make this found footage movie, and they're usually terrible. they're if they're not planned out well because there is a actually a high level of skill involved in making sure that your storytelling is using the format really well. And we really thought that the last episode used the format to its advantage in terms of like carefully kind of leading us through the narrative. And I was curious about, your choice of doing a found footage film and kind of what led you to decide that you wanted to tell this story and tell it in this format.
Well, our writer, Abaddon Knight, who's also an old friend, he came up with just a great concept. For a long time, he'd felt like cops would be an ideal source of found footage material for a horror movie, and also he believed it could be done rather inexpensively too. So he showed it to our producers, Paul and Chris, who subsequently showed it to me, and I just loved it. I mean, honestly, I'm happy to work in any genre as long as there's a great script and it feels inspiring. I'm not, I'm pretty genre agnostic in that sense, but there's a lot of found footage movies I like, and as I've been going around to different festivals with this film, I watched a number of other really excellent recent ones. There's a good one from Toronto called Dream Eater, another one called Dooba Dooba. Anyway, like with our film, I think some of the most important innovations are things Michael came up with actually. While we were, predictably brilliant guy, and when we were in prep, we watched some episodes of Cops, about a season worth of Cops together. From I don't recall, Michael, if it was '04 or '03 or '05, but it was right around the time when this movie is set.
Yeah,
And Michael identified that these aren't just sort of because the way the film was written, it's written like continuous moments that don't aren't broken up by time at all, right? But Michael noticed that in the show, it doesn't really play out that way. It would be too convenient for it to play out that way, for the cops just to show up, have everything happen, and then leave. It's all broken up into a series of jump cuts. It's like a highlight reel of a larger moment. Whether it was 15 or 40 minutes in real time, it gets condensed down to 45 seconds to 3 minutes of time in the show. And also because it's a one camera affair, um, you necessarily can't have any continuity cuts in the whole movie. Everything needs to be a jump cut. And Michael identified that it was very important to have it feel like a really clever camera operator and editor had teamed up to make some of these jump cuts feel like they're continuity edits. So you have the end of some dialogue going over the beginning of the next shot, or the beginning of some dialogue from the next shot coming over the end of one shot. So it all kind of fits together in a way that feels more filmic in spite of all being jump cuts. So what we conceived is for the first 10 or 20 pages of the script, Michael and I went through it and we worked out where the breaks in time were. And then I went through it from there, and Michael took a look at my ideas after that as well for like where we could have these breaks in time for the rest of the script. And I just thought that was such a genius notion because it like he really captured like what it is about cops that feels so clever, in a really way that was simple for me to understand. And we just went from there, and yeah, that was like a big part of like it would have been challenging, I think, to do it all as oneers and have it feel convincing and then just break it up with B-roll or something like that. It forced us to think more creatively, and it also creating these limitations in terms of how it can be shot and edited and feel convincing, um, is inspiring. And I think that, as you say, like I think that's one of the brilliant things about found footage. It creates guardrails for you. Those limitations inspire you to be creative and come up with new ideas and new ways of solving that problem. Anyway, sorry for the long-winded answer.
Oh
and
no,
we,
that's
but I
I
mean, and in
uh,
conjunction with that, like we decided, like we talked about it quite a bit, and it was difficult to do, but we decided to. I never wanted to see anything. I didn't want to know anything. I knew everything, and me and Nick talked about everything. But then I had asked if it was okay. I was like, Nick, is it okay if you just like work with the actors, go talk to them, do all the directing things you, but I don't want to be privy to, I don't want to know. I actually don't want to know the blocking. I don't want to know
Mm-mm.
anything. All I want to know is that I'm walking in. And we did it that way.
Yeah.
And it was nice. And a lot of the first takes were used, but then sometimes the first takes weren't used and it didn't matter, but it gave me, we would play it back and watch it, and then I'm
Mhm.
emulating something that I did instinctually. So then on take 15, that maybe the edit used take 15, I'm still copying what was my camera instinct when I first walked in the first time when I didn't know. So that's what we did. We did that. And then I would just be repeating things that I did the first time, and I wouldn't make it better, and I wouldn't, because I would have the inclination to like, make it smoother, get there first, like understand where it's going to go, like, what camera
Mhm.
filmmaking and all of that stuff. But it was fun to actually not work that way. And it was actually exciting, you know,
Yeah.
it was fun going into a scene, not knowing the blocking whatsoever and just finding it, finding it all.
It felt so live, and to Michael's point too, I think it helps a lot that Michael has like a fair bit of acting experience as well, because in effect, what he was doing was playing a cop's TV camera operator in the film, and trying to have his clearly trying to emulate the style of camera work that was done in the show, the way that they zoom in and out, the way that they find particular objects or people like in the frame at the right moment, but not have it. But like, as he said, because Michael had this like strong request not to know the blocking. Like it let it feel live every time on take one. And you're right, you carried that through the other takes. It stayed consistent through the rest of them. Like I think probably about a third of the shots in the movie are take one. And like, which is a lot more than is typical because they just felt so live and Michael did such an excellent job on them. Anyway, yeah,
And
this is
we'd obviously do inserts of things that we needed, but that
mm,
would have been done. It would have
totally.
been an insert at a different moment. It would have been an insert like an hour later or something. And then we were like, oh, and then the editor took that insert and put it into like we were thinking in that way, like just trying to make it
Mhm.
really authentic. That's the job that we had. That was the only job.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
my only job. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
just
No,
like,
yeah.
how
No,
do I
you're
make
right.
it as authentic as I possibly can from the perspective of camera? Because that's the job of the cinematographer to make the camera work for the film. So even in this situation, which wasn't like lighting, wasn't camera moves, it was just like that seemed to be the job. I was like, oh, that's my job on this. Be as authentic as I possibly can be. Be that era, of camera work.
Nice.
Mm,
Well, you pulled it off. Definitely pulled it off. And it's really interesting to hear how there's how again how much planning went into kind of how you were going to do it and just like kind of the method that you wanted to use to make it like you weren't the camera's not leading your it's not anticipating what's coming up so that it's showing you, but it's more of a reaction to the thing. Like, what was that? And it makes the audience
Yeah,
and
exactly. You're missing something. You miss
yeah.
it.
I
You
was
can't get it. There's
like,
no
hey,
way
go
you can
back,
get it.
no, go back. What was that? Or and speaking of what was that, there's a lot of scenes. I'm gonna skip ahead to the end a little bit because I'm really interested in kind of all the scenes that take place in the house
Mm.
and like kind of out in the courtyard and like the practical effects that you guys put in this movie. Can you just speak about a little, just kind of give us the some behind the scenes of like how you did all that stuff? Like there's a big guy dressed as a goat, and there's people in
Yeah.
really good prosthetic makeup and just like a lot of very realistic looking things happening.
Yeah, we had a great prosthetics and special effects makeup team. Chris, our was the head of that department. Chris Bridges, he did a great job, and he designed an awesome goat man inspired by the Baphomet, and uh, my only issue is that I feel like he's a little too attractive. I wish Goatman was a little less attractive. It's not Matt, the actor who plays him's fault. We needed to do more to make him less attractive. Anyway, like I think he's great though. Like it was suitably scary, and I think importantly, you don't see a little bit, you don't see too much of him. He's kind of obscured. He's deep in shadows for most of the moments you see him, and there's just enough there to get a sense of the physicality and the size of the monster. Um, and the in terms of some of the other practical effects, we had a really good special effects team too. And we were pretty, to Michael's point, on most days we had sort of 12 people on set, including the actors. But then on the days where we needed more people for safety reasons, to your point, our stunt coordinator, Chris Cordell, or the special effects makeup team to make things look right, we'd have a handful of extra people. And then like notably the big ceremony scene at the end, I mean, there's 25 background in that shot. And we have an AD department. Like most of the show, we didn't have an AD the whole time, just on that day. So yeah, the practical effects were those are one of the few moments, or some of the only moments in the movie where it was a little bit more about finding a particular frame, if I recall correctly, Michael. Like to capture those moments, like
Oh yeah.
the shots would still be live and improvisational, but we needed to make sure to get the effect properly in frame. So there, we did plan that part of the shot out in advance. And then
Oh,
it would
that
still
that
be
entire
yeah.
sequence was fully like completely different than the rest of the movie. It was like effects, so
Yeah,
we had to see them.
yeah.
So we were very clear. We knew what we were doing going in, and it was like very movie making that
Mhm.
scene.
There's a lot of architectural features too that you kind of had to work around with like
Yeah.
the
W-
people coming out of the basement and
That helps a lot actually because you can hide cuts, and in some cases we didn't bother to, but in other cases we did, and like that helps you make shots that are not oneers feel like oneers. Where earlier in the film the scenes were broken up and we had lots of jump cuts breaking up, showing revealing gaps in time. In order to make these scenes feel like condensed highlight reels of larger moments at the end of the film, because we're dealing with terrifying set of circumstances, it's important that the last 20 minutes feels like it takes place over the course of perhaps half an hour of real time, where the first hour of the movie takes place over the course of an entire day, basically. The last 20 minutes is showing more of what's actually going on. Because you wouldn't, if you were making a pseudo documentary about this series of unfortunate events, you wouldn't want to leave this horrific set of circumstances. You'd stay with them through the whole thing. So yeah, to Michael's point, you're right. It was very different than the rest of the film in that regard. Um, yeah, I don't know that I answered your question about the practical effects that well, other than to say we had brilliant people working on them in the film, and uh, I remember getting the timing right on the moment where I'm disinclined to spoil this completely, but the moment where someone gets shot, uh, I'm I remember getting the timing right on that. Took us a few goes, but everyone did a great job. And also, another limitation of a small crew was revealed to us because, of course, when you have a pretty big, bloody practical effect like that, there's cleanup associated with it between every take and resets and things like
Mhm.
that. And when your art department is three people who've also got a pre-dress for another scene going on in a different part of the same place, like it becomes a logistical thing. But everyone pulled together and did a great job. So yeah.
yeah, you don't think about the when you have to reset a big messy thing. And I was just about to ask you if that blood was real or if it was digital. And I'm curious, did you do any kind of digital enhancement like throughout the movie, or did you kind of just stick to all practical?
It's not 100% practical, but it's mostly practical effects. There's a couple of moments. There's a few things we painted out of certain shots that wouldn't have been era appropriate. Um, we changed a couple of signs to different names, and there's a couple of the effects at the end of the film that were more practical to do as digital effects rather than practical effects, because they would have created um, an incredible, they would have just been a logistical nightmare to deal with otherwise. And that we didn't think we lost anything by doing them digitally in those specific cases. But yeah, um, anything we could do practically on a practical level, we did. So yeah.
I really enjoy the resurgence in filmmakers choosing practical over just all digital all the time. It's just the texture is different, and like, the human eye can detect all those little differences, and spotting that uncanny valley. We're really good at it. Uh,
Mhm.
I About the locations. Did you choose, like, how did you work out the locations? Because you have actors running around and crouching and like falling downstairs, and the cameraman has to follow them, and like you have to, Michael, you have to walk, or you have to follow them with a camera pack. What were some of the I guess struggles or challenges in shooting in actual locations, as opposed to having the flexibility of like building a set with like, breakaway walls or things like that?
I mean, the The vehicle was a little bit challenging. It was uncomfortable. It was always uncomfortable because I couldn't really put the camera on my shoulder because I'm in a tiny vehicle. So I was like always holding on to it. It's like physically holding on to it. A lot of the operating wasn't on my shoulder. Like I was like, I'd have it like either low and looking at it or in the house, in that house, it was like so small. I think I smoked the camera a few times, like, like coming up these super, like really narrow staircases and like actually physically having to go up the stairs. It was physical. I was like sweating a lot. In certain scenes, I was just like, oh my gosh, it was like a lot. And I remember everyone was always like, whoa, you need a break. But I was always like, no, 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 let's just like get it. We're in the heat of it. But yeah, like I didn't have my key grip with me that I would normally have. I always work with this one man, this guy, Todd Thompson. He's amazing. And he always protects me. He's always behind me. He's always in front of me. He's always beside me if I'm doing handheld because he's my eyes. But I didn't have him on this film uh, because it was like super low budget. And we wanted to keep it lean. And that's the only thing I wish I had had on the film because I did like fall a few times and I did like hit into things. And I, you know what I mean? Like if I had had him, I think it would have been a little bit better for me. Doing if I did had to do something like this again, I would for sure have a key grip, someone to like, take the camera off my shoulder when I'm done shooting. I didn't have that. I just had myself. So I kept, it's like awkward to get it up on the shoulders and it's like a heavy camera. So but yeah, the locations were fine. Everything was fine except for that. But I liked the limitations of it because I thought it made the camera operating like so much more interesting because the camera was going on its side and then I was just doing whatever I could to get up the stairs. In a real movie, I mean, it is a real movie, but I mean, like in a big budget movie, yes, you would have a location, it would be like there would be no wall, the stairs would look one way, but I'd be going up separate stairs, that were
Mhm.
like easier to go up and with no wall behind me and all kinds of headroom, but I'd just be filming this small section that to
Yeah.
make it look small. But it was small. It was like really insane. And to get certain shots and to get in there and have the sound person get up before me, we had to orchestrate all of that. Nick was on a video, a wireless, like like a cordless, like a video, a tethered transmitter, so he could be somewhere else, and then I'd be sprinting around with the sound with Ian and Jaren, eh? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was in the house. Ian wasn't there for that. It was
No.
him. And I
Ian was there
remember
for Ian was there for part of the house. And, yeah, and then Jaron was there for, yeah, you're right. Yeah, at the end, when we went back to the
most
house,
of
Jaron was
the
there.
all of
Yeah.
that tiny stuff, I remember Jaron because I remember him being behind me and because he
Yeah.
has boom, they're loud, but he's still most of it, all of it was boomed. And they lab them, but I don't know if you use the labs because they wouldn't be as authentic. And I think probably in your edit, you probably ended up using as much of the boom as possible because that's
Mhm.
what it would sort of sounded like from the camera's perspective, yet again. So I I haven't had a chance to listen to the latest mix, so I don't know how you chose to do that, but I'm sure it's pretty authentic. Using the boom, I would imagine you use more of the boom. But yeah, it was fun. It was like just the boom and running around. So tiny, camera's heavy, but I'd do it, you know, I'd do that every single year for the rest of my life. Like have that camera on my shoulder. It's fun. Like that's fun. Everything else it gets boring. That's fun.
We'll just bring Todd next time. Todd's a good time. I want Todd there. Like we should just bring him
Yeah,
out
Todd.
every
Todd has
once
to
in a
be
while.
there. I
Yeah.
like those types of movies. Like I've done films I've
Yeah.
shot like, in Africa and where I'm just forced to have the tiniest crew, Romania and things like that. I've shot all of these places and to me those are the best shoots by far. And this was one of those best shoots because you're like limited. You have no crew. You make it work and it still works. And then the movie's still good without 100 people on set all the time. It's still good. It's just as good, maybe even
Mhm.
better, you know.
Well, all
Yeah.
of the love and energy and planning and care really comes out in the film. I think it's really uh, quite an achievement. And for me, the occult angle that it goes, like the kind of turn down that occult alley was really exciting for me because like we don't always get to see the supernatural in our films, especially presented in the way that it was. So I guess we avoided spoilers, so that's good. And for the audience that's watching, Nick and Michael, we have a Portland Horror Discord community that I can send you the link when we get off of here. But I think there's
Please do, yeah.
a short code that's bit.ly/PHFF Discord, and we've got people chatting in there, filmmakers and things. And if anyone has any specific questions that they want to know or ask Michael and Nick, I highly recommend that you hop on the Discord and ask those questions. And maybe if they don't feel like it's going to ruin everyone else's enjoyment of the film, maybe they'll get an answer. So
Happy to. Yeah, I use Discord quite a bit, so I'd be happy to.
Mhm.
Michael, is there or Michael and Nick, is there anything else that you kind of want the audience to know about that we didn't cover here? I mean, we kind of only dipped a toe in, I feel like, but there's anything else to that you wanted to put out there? Anything that you were especially like psyched about shooting or anything, any fun behind the scenes things?
Oh, well, the scene early in the film with the naked man was interesting to shoot because, of course, in the story, our two hero cops are investigating this guy riding naked on a bicycle. And when you're shooting in public, and you're using the roads, you of course need to have police officers who from the local constabulary who follow you around and make sure that you're not causing traffic accidents and things like that, blocking off traffic as necessary. Um, so we had that, but then also because we were literally shooting that in a very busy part of this small Ontario town, um, there were a whole bunch of reports of indecent exposure that got sent in to the other cops, not our cops who were tailing us, who didn't have a problem with what we were doing. They're like, "Oh, it's a movie. You have approval to show a man riding naked on a bicycle." But at a certain point, some other police officers, some of their colleagues showed up to investigate a scene with police officers investigating indecent exposure, and it felt very silly. Like it felt like our movie should be about this almost in that particular moment. I remember our producers Paul and Chris just having to explain, see, look, we've got approval because I guess the town assumed that we would not be subjecting the public to our actor just actually being naked in front of everybody, but that wasn't the case. We did, and in the end it was fine because we got what we needed before the cops showed up, and we just moved on to shooting the rest of the scene where he had his pants on, so it was fine. But yeah,
Now we
that
put
was
his pants on, and then
yeah,
and then we just did coverage above, like as though it
yeah.
was we got the moment we needed where he was naked, and then we moved on to deciding to as though the police officer was like, or like just the cameraman was just like, I don't need
Mhm.
to see that naked body anymore. I'm gonna move into a little closer, and that's what we did.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think the way Chris, our producer, said that when the main cop out of the ones who came up to investigate this said, we explained the situation to him, and he said to Chris, "But he's naked." And he said, "Yeah, I know. It says he's going to be naked, but I can see his testicles." And like that was that. I can't say that was Chris's experience. I can't say it as funny as him, but it just felt very like a very weird situation. The just the how if, to use an overused term, how meta it felt, I guess. The fact that there was, it was an investigation about an investigation in the movie of the same thing. Anyway, yeah, that was a bit of a silly story. And yeah, otherwise, it was just so much fun making the movie, getting to work with a lot of the same people I've worked with before and make a few new friends too. And with the wonderful job that our cast did. Ben Sutherland and Anthony Grant in particular, who play Massaro and Williams in the movie. didn't meet each other until the first day of principal photography, and yet they have such great chemistry. They both were just wonderful and such nice guys to work with too, like up for anything. Um, and yeah, I felt like very privileged to work with them and with everybody in our cast and crew. So yeah. Um,
Lovely. Amazing.
I
Just
like the death scene. I like dying. We had two
yeah,
death scenes. We
yeah,
did it originally, and then we had to redo it. And I really loved the first death scene that's not in the movie.
yeah.
But then we reshot the death scene because supposedly they just needed a little bit more, that, like Nick and Paul and Chris wanted more out of it after they were, and Agnes, the editor, they and I think your father, eh? Your dad, Nick,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
everybody, like sort of that was like the big note of the movie, is that the ending was too quick. So we reshot the ending, and I was happy with the reshoot of the ending as well.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
really liked the original ending because it
Who
just
knows
seemed.
though, man? You like dying so much. Maybe we should do it again. You never know, right? Like one.
I'll die again, but I liked
Okay,
it.
cool.
I like those.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me as well.
I like both endings for
Mhm.
different reasons.
well, cool extra features on the DVD release. Is there
Well,
a
yeah.
plan? So I know you're kind of doing your festival run. Is there a plan for a wider release afterwards? Is it going to go, or is there going to be a physical media release, or is it just going to be packaged for rental or things?
I hope so. But I'm not sure yet. We're still figuring that out at this point, I guess. We are playing another festival shortly after Portland Horror Film Festival. We're playing it at Raindance in the UK. And that's on the 22nd of June. We're playing there. Um, but yeah, so far I think those are our only concrete plans, playing with you guys at Portland and then playing at Raindance. And after that we've spoken with a few people about distribution plans for the film, but we haven't come to any agreement yet. So yeah. um
Excellent. So where can people find out? Like, is there a place that you put your work up on social media or a website? People want to see more of your work and see more of your amazing camera antics for both of you. If you want to plug your socials or a web, if you've got a professional website you want to point to people to.
um well, the website or the Instagram for the film is just at the lost episode. And my Instagram is at Nick Wernham, just my full name, all one word. And I guess the website for our production company is innislake.com. So INNISLAKE.com. And Michael, I think you're on Insta too, right?
I'm Michael, son of Paul. That's my dad's name, Paul. Yeah, Michael, son of Paul is my Instagram handle, and I have a website. It's just my full name, Michael LeBlanc, LEBLANC .ca.
Perfect.
That's my
Amazing.
web.
Well, I just want to thank you again for joining me, for just chatting with me for this long. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and to our audience. And to our audience, please, if you watched this early in the streaming and you enjoyed it, please tell people to come find it. It's streaming through June 18th, and it's available to ticketed audience only. You can find that information at portlandhorror.eventive.org. And then yeah, look for these guys doing their thing. I'm excited to see what you guys work on next. And I guess I should have asked you that. Is there do you have a project that you're working on now that's in pre-production or in production?
Not far along yet. No, I'm writing a horror script right now, and my friend who wrote this script is also working on one too. So we'll see who gets done first, and then
Okay,
maybe that'll be the next one. Yeah. Um, yeah.
excellent. All right, guys. Again, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we will see your next horror film here at Portland Horror Film Festival.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks so much. That was fun.